Good afternoon. Welcome to Acquisition 102B. This is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and we are so pleased to be partnering with our colleagues in the ODOT Office of Real Estate to be able to bring this two-part training series to you. Your presenters for the day are going to be Sean Crawford and Wayne Pace, and a couple of items, and then I'll turn it over to Sean, who is going to kick things off. First off, in your handouts box, there should be two handouts for you. You can download those from that area. They have a PDF of today's slides and also an index of the handouts. We will be asking poll questions throughout the webinar. If for some reason you're not able to directly respond to those, please don't worry. We aren't recording whether or not you responded, but we do want people to participate, so we're going to be shooting for 80% participation on those questions as far as your responses before we move on to the next one. So the quicker you vote, the quicker we move on. I think that is all that I had for right now. Oh yes, questions. If you have questions, please put them in the question box and I will read those off to our presenter during the training so we can get responses to your questions. Sean, now I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Victoria. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for attending Acquisition 102 Part B, Session 1. This course was originally intended to be in person. As we know, that couldn't happen, so we're going to put on a quick webinar. Shouldn't last any more than an hour. Quick course overview of what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the Re95 and its process, plan changes, excuse me, the two types of plan changes, the reasons why we would have them, purchase of improvements, and recognizing tenants. So I'm going to start with the Re95 process covered on section 5202.01 of our real estate manual. And the Re95 is completed whenever we have any man-made improvements in our TIC areas. It also describes whether or not the property is real or personal. So some quick bullet points on the purpose of the Re95. It identifies improvements in the take area, lets us know whether those are fee-owned or tenant-owned, alerts the appraiser as to what to include in the appraisal or what not to include in the appraisal, helps the relocation agent know what needs to be moved, helps property management take possession if we have no disputes over who owns the item. And if they're real or personal, we won't have any disputes, and it'll help property management take possession of those items. And it'll avoid and settle any disputes later on in the acquisition process. Also helps to avoid duplication of payment. So we're not paying a fee owner for something and the tenant owner at the same time. And also alert ODOT that the Re56 disclaimer is needed. Re56 is a document that's signed by the fee owner of a piece of property, and he disclaims his interest in it. Right, types of improvements that are listed on the Re95: signs or inserts. When I say inserts, I mean those big inserts that are on the front of a large shopping center where there might be 8 or 9 different storefronts. Those plastic inserts are to be listed on the Re95. Those can get pretty complicated as well. Building sheds, barns, spas, pools, above ground fencing, and light poles are also listed on the Re95. Items that are not necessary for the Re95, anything that's naturally occurring, trees, shrubs, grass, ponds, those things are not listed on the Re95. Items that are assumed to be part of the fee owner's ownership are not included on the Re95. Those things are driveways, septic systems, leach fields, curbing, asphalt. Could be a lot more than that, but those are just a few examples that we put down. The Re95, the purpose of it is not to include the inventory within a structure. Chairs, furniture, appliances, those are not included on the Re95. Those would be included on a relocation. document, which we're not going to talk about today. All right, so real property is appraised, purchased, and it's not moved. And personal property is the exact opposite. It's not appraised, not purchased, and it is moved. Commonly used terms when preparing the Re95: real property, physical land or appurtenances and/or appurtenances fixed to the land, structures, and all things natural that are a part of the land. Sorry about that. Personal property, items of property movable and not permanently affixed to the real estate. A fixture is an item that was once personal property, but it's now been installed on the land or building, and it's now a personal, not personal, it's now a permanent item. And trade fixtures. These are considered personal property to be removed by the tenant when the lease expires, unless this has been surrendered in the lease. So we're talking about restaurant items, large grills, fryers, if you're talking about a carpenter, it might be his saws, things like that. All right, so what are the tests of real property versus personal property? The nature or the type of property, the manner of annexation, so we're talking about how the item was attached. Was the item attached in such a way that removing it would create damage to the structure? What was the purpose for which the annexation was made? So did the owner put a hot tub and just throw it down on a concrete slab? Or did they put a hot tub down and build a large deck around it where you can reasonably assume that they would never move it? What was the intention of the annexing party to make the property part of the real estate? And what is the degree of difficulty and extent of loss if it is removed? So when should the Re95 be prepared, and who should prepare the document? It should be completed very early in the acquisition phase of the project and prior to engaging the appraiser. The Re95 must be completed prior to making an offer to the owner. Let's go back real quick. I thought we had one more bullet, but we don't. Yeah, so if you're making the offer prior to the Re95 being completed, you just risk having to make the offer again. If there was a tenant-owned improvement there where something was described as personal property and it should have been real property, we don't want to have to go back and revise our offer. That's why we recommend that the Re95 be prepared very early in the process prior to the offer being made. So who prepares the form? The project manager has discretion of who prepares the form. Could be a realty specialist / acquisition agent, could be an appraiser, could be a relocation agent. Whoever it is needs to be knowledgeable on the process. If the parcel is a relocation parcel, the agent to prepare the Re90 should prepare the Re95 during the pre-acquisition survey. So this means that if it's a relocation parcel, it's best that the relocation agent prepares the Re95 to avoid any confusion. All right, so whoever prepares the document must be familiar with the definitions of real and personal property. They have to understand the Re95 process. They have to have a functional knowledge of appraisal and relocation. So they don't have to be an appraiser, they don't have to be a relocation agent, just have a high level of knowledge of the two processes. Disputed improvements. So, of course, the purpose of the Re95 is to document who owns the improvement. If the owners are not able to resolve, the parcel will be appropriated. So if you get a tenant and a property owner arguing about a piece of property and you can't get that Re95 signed, there's no point in moving forward. That's another reason why we do it early in the process, because if you're going to have two owners in conflict about one piece of property, then you might as well get it out of the way early and send it to appropriation. Updating the Re95. This is at the manager's discretion. So we're going to talk about some two suggestions, but it's ultimately at the manager's discretion as to how we update the Re95. The major change, we recommend that a new Re95 be created with new signatures and dates. A minor change, we recommend adding the changes to the original 95 and then having all parties initial and date the Re95 next to the changes that were made. Who signs the Re95 is the fee owner, signs, prints their name, date on the form. The tenant also signs, prints, dates the form, and the agent who prepared the form. If you had multiple, sorry about that. If you had multiple multiple tenants on one property, then multiple tenants would sign, print, and date the form. All right, so here's an example of an Re95 form. This one has been filled out, not a real parcel, just a hypothetical. So this is what the form looks like, and at the top, if you read this paragraph, it really tells you a lot about things. So most of our forms are designed where if you read, you really pick up a lot of information and it'll answer a lot of your questions. The purpose of the Re95 is to identify improvements in the take area, to classify these improvements as real property or personal property, and to identify who owns these improvements. The improvements classified as real property are valued in the appraisal process, and ODOT will purchase these improvements. Items classified as personal property are moved in the relocation process. So just that one paragraph highlighted the first 16 slides that I went over, roughly. So just reading one paragraph will really help you out if you're new to this process. All right, so down into the body, of course, it's pretty simple. We've got the address, name of the person occupying the property. So this would be a tenant. In this case, there are two tenants. So Peter Greenhill occupies the residence. Fred Archibald is the farmer tenant. The fee owner's name, a brief description of the property type. So you've got residential or agricultural property and a barn and a single family residence in the take area. So you've got three sections down here: description of the improvement in the take area, the classification of the property. Was it real property or was it personal property? Was it owned by the fee owner or the tenant owner? And in this case, we have multiple tenant owners. So it's tenant / Greenhill, tenant / Archibald. And then you list what you have classified as real or personal property and who owned it.
Sean, there's a question that's come into the question pod.
Sure,
Says,
go ahead.
if there are no tenants, is it safe to assume that all improvements belong to the fee owner? So an Re95 should not be needed.
No, I wouldn't assume anything. I would always fill out the Re95 if there are improvements in the take area.
Okay, next question. When there is a dispute as to the Re95 item, by the way, between owner and tenant, when you say it moves to appropriation, do you mean appropriate the project parcel or the item itself?
The entire parcel.
Great, that's all we had in there, thanks.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Any others? All right, move on real quick. All right, this is the second page of the Re95. So remember, we had fee owner, we had 2 tenant owners. So on the second page where we have our signatures, our standard document comes with 1 fee owner line, 1 tenant owner line, but in this case, the form had to be modified to add a tenant. So that's an option when if you have a unique parcel where you have multiple tenants, you have the option to add a tenant line so that we don't have to fill out multiple Re95s for the same parcel. All right, if you had any comments, anything that was irregular about it, that's where the acquisition agent would type that in here. If you had a refusal to sign, you would type in that refusal, the reason for the refusal here. All right, so I'm going to move on to plan changes. Give everybody just a few seconds if you had any questions on the last section to go ahead and type those in. I'll just pause for probably 10 or 15 seconds, see if anything comes in. If not, I'll go ahead and move on.
Nothing yet, but I did ask folks if they wouldn't mind just dropping me a hi or hello in the question box so I know that they're here. And a few have done that, but not everybody. So if you get a second, please do that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section, plan changes. All right, we have 2 categories of plan changes. Property owner requested plan change and a mistake, oversight, or required correction to the plans. So the district will consider the request and decide, and now we're talking about if the owner requests a plan change. No compensation, no additional compensation would be due to the owner as a owner requested plan change. So if by chance the owner's request required a larger take, no additional compensation would be due. I would say usually it's the opposite, and our take would decrease, but it's case by case basis. The form Re66, which is an agreement not in accordance with the plan, is used to document the change. Signature from all parties needs to be obtained, and the owner should be provided a copy. All right, so this is a look at what the form looks like. So at this point, the owner has executed and delivered to ODOT a deed for highway purposes describing that a portion of the owner's land needed for the improvement of the above captioned section of highway is shown by plans on file in ODOT. The following changes to the said construction phase are a part of the consideration for said deed. And then down here on the second to last paragraph, the property located in Athens County, you'd state the route, perhaps the route section and the exact stationing of where is that, and just a quick description of what the change was. In this case, the owner requested that a section of pipe be installed in the area of a proposed ditch traveling the width of the property. And they also show where that item was located on the right-of-way plans and construction plans. Simply just the second page where the signatures go. All right, our second type, most common type of plan change is just as a result of a mistake or a correction needed to the plans. the change must be reviewed to determine if it affects compensation. So of course, if a plan change as a result of our mistake, they will be owed additional compensation if a larger take is needed. Now, in the same ballpark, if the take is reduced, the offer would also be reduced. Negotiations can continue if it is obvious the change will not affect compensation. The negotiator must advise the property owner of the change. If the fair market value estimate needs to be reestablished, the district must make another offer subsequent to the original offer. So that's what we talked about in the first class. It's going to be either the revised good faith offer or the updated good faith offer. If it were a result of a mistake or a correction on the agency's part, it would be an updated good faith offer, which also rescinds the original offer. So in the next few slides, we have an example of a plan change. This was in Richland County. If anybody's familiar with the project, give Victoria a quick hey and let her know. That'd be interesting to me. So this is what it looked like before the project. Take notice of the two large trees, how far back, how close they are to the property. And the next page is going to be the right-of-way plan sheet. All right, so this is a look at the right-of-way plan. You can see the two trees that I mentioned are here. See the construction limits are the blue line, and the limits are well inside of those trees. So the trees are going to be removed. And you see that the project is bringing the standard highway easement much closer to the front porch of this home. And here we have a short section culvert going underneath the driveway. This very well could have been initiated by a property owner request, but in this case, Jim Kenyon, who's now retired from District 3, saw it and knew what a benefit it would be to the property owner to install a larger culvert through the width of their property so that we could avoid going so close to their front door and we could avoid tearing down these trees. So you can see how much smaller the take got. The SH is in the green, the temporary is yellow, and how far back construction limits were pulled. And this is what it looks like after the project. So if plans would have remained the same, you've been talking about having the trees would have been eliminated, and they would have a ditch beginning about right here. And going through it, we just have a few more photos of the project after construction. And that's the end of our section of, plan changes. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask if Victoria has any.
There's none in the question box right now, and apparently nobody was familiar with that project. Sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, I'm going to move on to purchase of improvements. All right, so purchase of improvements. District or agency must determine if the improvement is in the take area, determine if the improvement is real or personal, determine the type of take. Is it a fee simple, WD, WL? Is it an easement? What will the type of form, sorry, just moving a dialog box over. What will the type of form to be used for the purchase of the improvement? Purchase of improvements for fee simple parcels. So if we have a take, it's WD or WL. So ODOT is acquired, ODOT or the agency is acquiring all right and title to the property. It's required by policy that we utilize the contract for sale and purchase of real property. We have two of those, RE220B and RE220L. You'll be using the B if there's a building on the property, and you'll be using the L if it's just land. Land meaning no structure. All right, when using these documents, a bill of sale is not required. So bill of sale is not required when we're dealing with the fee simple purchase of parcels because the contracts include the land and the improvements. All right. So if you get a third party involved, that's when you would need to utilize a bill of sale. So if you've got to take from a fee owner and there's also a tenant owned improvement, that's when you would need to acquire the bill of sale from the tenant owner. All right, taking a look at our contract. This is the 220L. Just pointing out that the improvements are pointed out on this contract. So this is why we don't need to utilize a bill of sale when dealing with fee simple purchase. All right. Seller shall not change the existing character of the land or alter, remove, destroy, or change any improvement located on the property described in Exhibit A. Seller shall surrender physical possession of the land and improvements to purchaser, not later. And then it goes on to mention dates. All right. Move forward to purchase of improvements on easement parcels. So easement parcels, we're talking about our standard highway easements, channel easements, slope easements, any easement that we have. If the improvement is in that take area, we would be acquiring that improvement with a bill of sale. If the easement was on a proper, if the property was, if the improvement was on property owned by the fee owner, we'd be using the Re69 AC. So if we have an easement and there's an improvement owned by the fee owner, you would have to utilize the bill of sale to acquire the improvement. Right. The Re69CC would be if the improvement was owned by the tenant owner on the easement taking. All right, this is an example of a, well, not an example, this is just a bill of sale as it looks on our website. Names, dates, parcel number. The box, you would identify the improvement and the cost of the improvement. The entire cost of the entire parcel. And you would, and let me go back to the top. This is the 69 AC. So this is a bill of sale from a fee owner. If you have a bill of sale from a fee owner, you would include the entire cost of the property and the improvement as the sum. And then we'll get into what I mean by copy AGO language later on in the presentation. Oops, sorry about that. So this just talks about maintaining possession and insurance. And then the bottom two just states that the owner shall assign the access rights of the structure and improvements to the agency. Back page for signatures and notary. But I believe, and Wayne can jump in there, is the change already made to remove the notary from these? or is that still pending?
No, change has been it's been done, and we're going to insert that into an updated slide.
Okay, great, thank you. So notary is no longer needed on these. Wayne, Doug, Drew all looked at that and decided that would not be necessary, and great timing considering it's difficult to get in front of somebody right now to get a notary. All right, this is a look at a filled out example. Of course, the top is pretty simple: name, dates, parcel number. In the box is just a description of what the improvement is, a very brief description of the improvement and the amount of money for the improvement. And again, this is a 69 AC. So this is from a fee owner. So the improvement was $1,500, but you see they have $5,000 because this is for the land and the improvement of the parcel. And you'll pull all of this information from the RE22 or the value analysis, however FMVE was established. Go back, make sure I didn't miss anything here. So the only other place on this page that would be filled out is section 4 right here. Just describes the equipment again. It's a little bit redundant. We could probably take a look at the form, in my opinion, and get it a little bit updated. All right, again, just a signature section and notary, which is now not required. Sorry, my mouse is going all over the place. All right. And this is an RE69 CC. This is from a tenant owner. Form looks very similar, but it does have some changes to it. Or some variations from the AC. Now, when you're filling out the 69 CC, because it is just the tenant owner, there isn't going to be any land to include in the sum. So you're just going to have the sum of the improvement. Sorry about this. Okay, filled out example of an RE69 CC. The name, date, parcel number, brief description of what the item is and the amount. And then when I talked about the AGO insert, this is what I was referencing. So if we have owner retention, in this case, the tenant owner of an improvement decided that they wanted to retain it. If district grants that request, we'll talk about that a little bit more, you would need to insert this retention language into this section here. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Sorry about that. I was having issues with my mic muting. So that is the owner retention language is from the 220-1 insert. This language could also be inserted in contracts. All right. Second page has item 5, which we've talked about before, and then just a signature page. All right, so we haven't talked about an Re66 form yet, and we're not going to get very in-depth into the Re66 form because that's more of a 103, acquisition 103 topic, and we've decided to hold that live as soon as we're able to, just because it gets a little bit more detailed. So what is the interrelationship of the Re66 form to the bill of sale forms? All right. This is covered under 5311, owner retention of improvements. The owner retention process allows an owner to retain an improvement that is considered in the fair market value estimate. The district or the consultant must document the improvement was purchased by ODOT or the agency. The property owner may request to the district office to retain the improvement. The district office will make that decision. District or the agency is not obligated to grant that request. The decision is generally based on the right-of-way clear date. So is there sufficient time to allow for these processes to occur? If there is sufficient time, then usually it will be granted. If there's just no time to get this process done in the correct way, then it won't be granted.
Sean, we have a question that's come in.
Go ahead.
The difference in dealing with a fee owner when improvements, non-structures are involved. The Re220L is for land takes with improvements and Re69AC for land easements with improvements, question mark, correct?
Yeah, read that one more time. That was just...
Yeah, and there was part of it was in brackets, so I'll put the brackets in this time. The difference in dealing with a fee owner when improvements, bracket, non-structures are involved, end bracket. The Re220L is for land takes with improvements, and the Re69AC for land easements with improvements, correct?
Okay. Yeah, I'm having trouble visualizing the question, so I'm just gonna kind of hit that topic again.
Okay, there was one other one too, if you don't mind me reading this one off, because I think it has to do with the same form. It says, do you use 69AC for a seller's improvement, bracket, previously authorized to be in an existing highway easement, end bracket, if it needs to be taken from a new project?
Okay, so I'll start with the first one. So I'll just kind of hit the topic again. The Re220L is used, the 220s are used for fee owners, period. So you're not going to be using the Re220s L or B when you're dealing with a tenant owner. If a fee owner has an improvement that is not a residence, that is not a large structure, then you're going to be using the 220L. So if it was a fence, if it was a shed, any smaller improvement from a tenant owner, and it's a fee taking, you're using the 220L. If there was a building such as a residence from a fee owner on a fee taking, you would be using the 220B. Now, the instance when you would get into needing a bill of sale from a fee owner is when the fee owner's taking is an easement. So easement instruments only cover the land if we have a taking from a fee owner and it is an easement, then we would have to utilize the Re69AC in order to acquire that improvement. So if it's an easement from a fee owner, you would have two documents. You would have the instrument, the easement instrument, and the bill of sale, the 69AC. Okay. Did you start to say something, Victoria?
I did not.
Okay, sorry.
And there's no more questions in the box either.
Okay, what was the second question? Because I forgot in my ramble.
That's fine. The person who put the first one in responded just now and says, that is what I asked and he answered, thanks.
Okay, great.
So the second question says, do you use 69AC for a seller's improvement? And then bracket, previously authorized to be in an existing highway easement, and bracket, if it needs to be taken for a new project.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused by the question. Whether it's a seller or not, we just care about owners. So yeah, if there's any improvement in our take, yeah, we would just have to go back to, is it an easement taking or is it a fee taking? Is it a tenant owned improvement or is it a fee owned improvement? then make our determination based on that. Hope that answered the question. If you need more clarification, just feel free to type in again that you need more clarification. If not, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Did I get through this one? Okay, now I'm going to go through this slide and just holler at me if any more questions come up, Victoria. All right, so we're talking about the interrelationship of the Re66 to the bill of sale form. We talked about how the decision is based on the right-of-way clear date. So if the property owner is approved to retain the improvement and remove it from the project site, a salvage value would have to be determined. The Re66 agreement for removal of improvements form will be used. The pre-approved language was created by the Assistant Attorney General's Office for owner retention, and we talked about that, the RE220-1. The retention language from the 220-1 can be inserted into the contract for sale and purchase of property, and it can also be inserted into the bill of sale forms. This is where the form is vaguely located on our website. And as I said before, I'm not going to get in depth on the Re66, just a quick overview of the form. Really the only section I'm going to talk about for the purpose of this course is right here. Whereas the state of Ohio has agreed to pay the owner the net sum of $743, which represents the entire sum of money paid to the state to the owner for the consideration of interest taken. So how do you get net sum? Pretty simple calculation. Fair market value minus whatever the salvage value was determined to be. And we're not going to get into salvage value in this course either. So this will make a lot more sense if you're new to the process whenever we get around to our 103 courses. So $753 minus the salvage value that was determined of $10 is the net sum. Net sum is inserted into the paragraph. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to talk just really briefly, not try to get too in depth on this, but the back page of the Re66 has what the parcel is. In this case, it was a BS parcel, wood panel, sign, 4.5, just has a brief description of the sign. And then it talks about how monies will be paid. So without getting too in depth, this is where we would be including our holdback amounts. And then at the bottom, we would have a date to which the work of removing that improvement would have to be done. And if you're confused about this form, don't be. We talk about it much more in depth in 103, and this course isn't meant to give an instruction of how to complete that form in depth. All right, so we come to our first knowledge check. With that, I will pass it over to Victoria to administer us a few questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get the first one opened up here. Let me launch that first poll. The first one says the Re95 is completed anytime there are blank improvements in the take area. Be natural, man-made. Both A and B are correct. D, neither of the above. Neither of the above meaning A or B. And they are voting. Great. You guys took me serious about the 80%. Thank you for being on top of it and picking an answer. And we don't record these, so just go with what your gut is. Okay. All right, I'm going to close that one down and share the results. All right, our results. We had 51% man-made, 42 said both A and B, and 7% said D. Nobody picked just A. I'll hide that. You can let them know what the answer is.
All right. All right. So anytime there are man-made improvements in the take area. And before you start reading the next question, I got a question through a text, and I'm not gonna point out the name unless he wants to identify himself, but I think it's a good question worth bringing up. Do you use a bill of sale, specifically in this question, a 69 AC on a temporary construction easement? Temporary only removed a business sign, and the answer is yes. So the temporary construction easement still only covers the land, and we would need the bill of sale to cover the improvement. So just in case anybody else had that question as well, I wanted to mention it. So going to the next question when you're free.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Here we go. When dealing with real property, it should be appraised, purchased, and not moved. True or false? They're answering quickly on this one too. That's good. All right, I'm going to close this one up and share the results. 92% said true and 8% said false. I'll hide the results and you can let us know what the correct answer was.
All right, that is true.
Okay.
And I realize I might be getting pretty far behind, so I'm trying to click as fast as I can for you.
You're fine. All right, I'm gonna launch the next one. It's also true or false. The Re95 process should be done late in the acquisition phase of a project. True or false? And there's a question that came into the question pod. Wouldn't the Re95 only be for tenant-owned improvements?
So no, we need to identify if there are any improvements. I think the key is to not assume anything. So if there are any improvements in the take area, we recommend to fill out an Re95. Hope that answers your question.
Right, and then the voting, which was well over 80%, said false at 100%.
All right, fantastic.
All right. I'm hoping that, yep, there we go. That's the answer you put up for us. All right, I'm going to read this next one off before I launch it because it didn't quite all fit on there.
Okay.
If the owners of real property cannot resolve a dispute regarding ownership of an improvement, the parcel must be blank. And then I'm going to launch it. Eliminated from the project, coerced, appropriated, or D, none of the above. So please put your votes in. Looks like they all got this one. Oh, I spoke too soon. All right, I'm going to close it and share.
All right.
98% said appropriated. 2% said eliminated from the project.
As long as no one said coerced, we're okay.
Wouldn't it nice to just eliminate problems from the project?
All right, so yes, the correct answer is that it would be appropriated.
All right, the next one. A plan change may occur when the property owner makes a request, a mistake or oversight is found, plans need to be corrected, or D, all of the above. They're voting quickly on this one too. We're there already.
Very good.
They're getting good at this voting. All right, 98% said all of the above. 2% said plans need to be corrected. So I'll hide that.
All right, the correct answer is all of the above, and the keyword is may change.
Okay.
May occur, I should say, because just because the property owner makes a request doesn't mean that a plan change will occur.
All right, next question. Sorry if everybody heard that. I've got kids. All right.
I understand.
When using the contract for sale and purchase to document the purchase of an improvement, it is also necessary to use and you'll have to finish that up for me. I'm sorry, this one cut off.
Oh, okay, that's no problem. I'll just read the whole thing. When using the contract for sale and purchase to document the purchase of an improvement, it is also necessary to use a bill of sale.
There we go, and it's true or false. I'm glad you read it off because it's the answers are definitely changing.
Okay.
So, all right, we're up over 80. I'm going to close that up and share. We have 42% that said true and 58% that said false.
Oh, interesting.
I will
Okay.
hide that and you can let them know.
All right, so the answer is false. So just a quick refresher, if we're using the contract for sale and purchase, we know right off the bat that it was a purchase from a fee owner and it was a fee simple purchase. So just wanted to kind of refresh your memory because the voting was kind of split. So yeah, contracts from a fee owner, automatically it was WD or WL, and we do not have to use a bill of sale if it was a purchase from a fee owner because that improvement is included in the contract to sale and purchase. So I hope that helps.
Right, I'm going to launch the next question. The owner retention process allows an owner to retain an improvement which has been considered in the FMVE. True or false? And then someone put in the chat pod or the question pod that maybe temp answer confused some. I think that's in relation to the last question.
Okay, apologies.
All right, voting is done here. I'm going to share the results. 90% said true, 10% said false.
All right, that answer is true.
Okay, and then our last question. Pre-approved language was created by the Assistant Attorney General's office regarding owner retention. True or false? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the voting and we'll share the results. 82% said true and 18% said false. I'll hide those up and it's all yours now.
All right. Do you have anything after this, Victoria? Do I need to be right at 1 o'clock?
No, I don't have anything after it.
Okay,
So
just wanted to
as long
double
as
check to see how fast I needed to go.
yeah, as long as they're willing to hang in there with you, I'm here too.
All right, I'll get through the last 12 slides as quickly as possible. All right, so we're talking about recognizing tenants. District offices must recognize any tenant having an interest in property to be acquired. Because, per the Ohio Revised Code, they are an owner. Owner means any individual, partnership, association, or corporation having any real estate, title, or interest in any real property sought to be appropriated. A tenant may not own the improvement, but by virtue of the lease, they may have contractual rights to share compensation with the fee owner. The tenant may own an improvement in the take area that could be real property, and this is known as a tenant-owned improvement. For any tenant-owned improvement, a separate negotiation is required, known as a bill of sale parcel. All right, leases and rental contracts. The appraiser or negotiator must obtain a copy of the lease or rental contract from the owner during the appraisal process or the negotiation process. We need to see if that lease contains an eminent domain clause, otherwise known as a condemnation clause. Does the lease or rental contract contain additional terms on condemnation issues? Does the lease contain information about the tenant's right to receive part of the compensation if the property is acquired or appropriated? All right. District offices or agency will determine if compensation is shared between the tenant and the fee owner. One FMV amount will be placed on the NIAGFO for the tenant owner and fee owner. The tenant and fee owner must agree on price and terms. If they cannot agree on price or terms, parcel will be appropriated. This could get kind of complex in such cases. If you have a condominium or apartment complex, shopping centers, you may need to seek guidance from the Attorney General's office or appropriate legal counsel if you're working with an LPA. All right, so what is the procedure for recognizing a tenant? We talked quite a bit about an Re95. We would need to obtain that to decide whether it's real or personal property, and if it's owned by the fee owner or the tenant owner. If it's property owned by a tenant, the fee owner of the property would have to sign an Re56 disclaiming their interest in that improvement. Also, always a good idea to obtain a copy of the lease. All right, case study number 1. So when you're looking at parcels, first thing you should look at is what's the interest being acquired. So in this case, it's a fee taking requiring 2 WD. The owners are James Smith and Lisa Smith. The realty specialist begins the acquisition on the parcel. Upon review of the plans, the specialist noticed this parcel is a taking of land to the rear of the property, and a shed is sitting on a concrete slab. The shed will be taken as a part of the project. The realty specialist contacts the owner for a meeting to inspect the parcel, and upon arriving, they identify the shed as shown on the right-of-way plans, and Mr. Smith confirms ownership of the shed. All right, so what form is used to identify the improvement? And this isn't, we're not polling, I'm just gonna be putting up the answers. Be using an Re95 to identify that improvement. So this is a fee taking from an owner. It's a fee taking, and this is property owned by the fee owner, but we're still documenting that on the Re95. All right, this is going to be a standard highway easement and a temporary taking. Owners are Martha Jones and Edward Jones. The realty specialist is assigned to acquire the parcel. It's a standard highway easement with a temporary. The Joneses own a small storage business with an entrance sign in the take area. The sign is old, and Mr. Jones stated that he does not want to retain the sign. What form will the realty specialist use to show that ODOT purchased the sign in compliance with ODOT's real estate manual? So the answer to that would be the Re69 AC. The reason why that is correct is that we're requiring an easement from the property owner. Easements only refer to the land, so the improvement has to be captured under the Re69 AC bill of sale from a fee owner. If the contract to sell and purchase the property was used for the acquisition, excuse me. So in other words, we changed this from an easement taking to a fee taking. The contract would have adequately documented the purchase, and the AC would not have been required. Is there a requirement to record a bill of sale form in the recorder's office? And the answer to that is no. It simply needs to be a part of the acquisition file so that we have that on documented that we did purchase that improvement. All right, so now we're going to use that same information, and David Johnson is going to be a tenant owner of that small business. and he owns the entrance sign. So what form in that case would the realty specialist use to show that ODOT purchased the sign in compliance with ODOT's real estate manual? And the answer is the Re69 CC bill of sale from a tenant. All right, in that case, we're talking about a fee owner owning a piece of property, and then we changed it to a tenant owner owning a business and a sign on that property. So what documents would the fee owner have to sign? And the answer is 3 items. One is the disclaimer form. The Re56 disclaims the fee owner's interest in any improvement that were owned by the tenant. The instrument, the owner would have to sign the instrument if it was a temporary easement or if it was a standard highway easement or both. And he would also have to sign the Re95. All right, case study number 4. We're getting close to the end, and it is 2:01, so I will be fast. A realty specialist received an assignment to acquire 15 SH, so we've got an easement. Right-of-way plan states that ODOT will acquire the easement in the proposed easement area with a ditch to be constructed as a part of the project. The owner had stated that he wanted the proposed ditch to change so that the ground could remain level. The request was approved once brought back to the manager, and the form that we used to make such a change, this is a property owner requested plan change, is the Re76. Quick reminder on the Re76 that no additional compensation would be due to the property owner from a request that was granted by a property owner. Property owner requests it, they get no additional compensation if the take has to increase. So that is the Re76 agreement for removal, and that is all. That completes our session today. If there are any more questions, I have time to answer them. I understand anyone that has to hop off. It is after 2 o'clock, so pass it
There's
over to
no
Victoria.
other questions in the box right now, so you're good, Sean.
All right. Well, sorry
Yeah.
for going a couple minutes over. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to listen today. Hope you didn't fall asleep there at your home office, and hope everybody stays happy and healthy, and look forward to seeing everybody back to normal soon. Thanks.
Thank you. And yes, everybody have a good rest of your afternoon. Take care.